ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Melton Toyota RDFNL Footy Show. First time this year, new format footy show that we've got going for you, ladies and gentlemen. Shaun Kelly's my name, in the host's chair for this week only, as after this, we give the big handball to the gentleman on my left, of course. He is the guru involved with media here in the Riddle District Football League. Everyone knows him, everyone loves him. We love him as well. Chris Yeend, mate, welcome to the footy show.
Thanks, mate. I don't know about all the love, mate. When I overrun on Saturday mornings, there's not too much love given from the supporters out there on the fence.
Well, that's what you get for umpiring, mate. Once you turn that on and you start walking around the ground in the baggy red with the 88.1 sign, there's just an outpouring of love from the community, mate.
Let's be honest, though. We're running around the fluoro greens, just nothing better in life at the moment.
Fluoro greens, how are they going? Obviously, with the new work with Riddle umpires this year, BLK are on board. Fantastic company, BLK. How's that all going with the new change in the colour? Has it been well received?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the things that people establish straight away is that branding straight from the from our league right through all the other leagues up to the AFL, and that's what spectators want to recognise.
Yep.
And let's be honest, they feel fantastic. If there was one criticism I had of it, let's be honest, I do mind the old jacket running around on a cold day. Instead, we've got the long sleeve shirt that we put over the top, which is nice and handy, but a nice jacket wouldn't be too bad. I'd leave that to the goalies, so I think they need to maybe have a glass of concrete sometimes.
I reckon that can happen. Obviously, BLK make a nice jacket in that through the umpire supply program, so you just need to chat to Mock and chat to the boys down there and make sure that happens, mate. So Mock, get your jacket, will you, mate? Look after him. Look, he's still skin and bone. There's not much insulation on the man, unlike myself.
Not at all, mate. But no, fantastic uniforms, and congratulations to all those involved making it happen. They're fantastic.
Let's jump straight into it, mate. New format for our end of week. What we're going to do from here on in is we're going to have an end of week show and we're going to have a start of week show. So at the start of the week, come up on about Tuesday morning, we'll go through the previous weekend. We'll have a 4 or 5 minute look at what's happened. End of the week show, we're going to have a look at the coming week and see what's happening in the RDFL. This week what we're going to do is we're going to combine the best bits of both of those. We're going to talk about our 3 talking points from the weekend, which will be the feature of our early week show every week. And then we're going to go through this weekend's round 4 matches in the RDFL and try and pick a winner or two to help you out. So let's jump straight into it. Talking points for this week, mate. Talking point number 1. It's all about goals. You've got to kick goals to win the game, and there are a lot of exponents in the RDFL this year that have proved to be extremely good at kicking goals. 2 of them in particular that you've seen, the 2 blokes sitting atop the goal-kicking table, Jonathan Kent from Lancefield, with 21 goals to his name after 3 rounds, and the big wombat out at Macedon as well, Marcus Kenny, who is absolutely slaying them, 17 goals for the top of the ladder side. Give us a little bit of a synopsis about how these 2 guys go about their business.
Well, we saw Marcus Kenny out in round 1, didn't we? But it's all about the midfield supply, and the Cats have really improved on that recruiting side over the off-season there. So the midfield's strong, and Marcus Kenny, outstanding marker of the ball. You kick the ball to him in a contested situation, he will take the grab, and it's sensational to watch him in full flight. Didn't see him, or I saw a quarter of him against the Centrals where he kicked 3 goals in the first term and looked very dangerous. Just has the ability to lead into space, but if the ball goes over his head, he's also got that additional height to mark. Whereas you look at John Kent, probably I would compare him more of the Matthew Davidson style, with Matthew Davidson kicking
which is goals. A bad thing.
Yeah, he's sort of a bit shorter, but he plays a bit taller than what he is, and he can jump high, mark well overhead, very, very quick when the ball hits the ground as well, recovers well, and he's a very good shot at goal. Very, very accurate. And I spoke to a few of the Lancefield supporters last week, mate, and if he doesn't bring people through the gates, nothing else will, because he will kick bags of gold, whether they win, lose or draw this year. He's going to be an outstanding asset to bring more people down through the gate at Tigerland, and that's what you need. We want to see increasing tendencies across the board.
Exactly right, and it's not just those 2. Big Ruff's got a bag of 8 under his belt for Riddle as well, of course, Brian Ruffle, and we know that Simon Clark, when he gets up and going, he's going to be responsible for a bag or 2 throughout the year as well. So I think the custodians of the 6-pointer in very good hands in the RDFL this year.
And we look at probably Tucky as well, and he hasn't had the he hasn't kicked the bags that we've used to seeing him. But
I think different down Diggers, because there's more options. There's obviously Lee Smales down there that can kick the goals as well. Lenny Clark floats forward and kicks goals. So if you get 3 or 4 out of Tucky, then he's probably doing his job this year.
And he can kick them from long range very, very accurately, and that's what you want at Diggers. It's just it's great to see that they're getting that form on the board early too.
They are indeed. Talking point number 2 for this week is the Rockbank Football Netball Club, who are struggling at the moment, it's fair to say. They're zip 3. They've got a bye this week, and boy do they need that, because they've come up against 3 sides that they finished higher than the ladder on last year, and they probably would have gone in expecting to win the 3 games. And zip 3 it's going to make it tough for them to repeat their finals from here on in. Look, it's round 3 and round 4, but the way that it goes with the way that we've seen improvement from teams like Macedon this year, teams like Lansfield, teams like Broadford, teams like the Melton Centrals even, it's going to be tough now for Rockbank to try and bridge that gap between those sides to get anywhere near that 5th or 6th spot.
And winning form is good form. If you get a few of these wins under the belt, then when you face the stronger teams, then you're going to be extra confident. You may be extra confident to bridge the margin or even upset them. So at least these wins are very important. I only got a chance to catch up on Rockbank just this past weekend, but from what I heard in the lead up to that was evident on the day. They play footy for good patches, but then when the pressure's really on, the chances for them to sort of take that extra step, maybe kick those extra couple of goals, they don't. The opposition kick those goals, and that puts them right behind the 8 ball. And from what I hear, that's probably been the consistency over the opening 3 weeks. But if they had played weathered the storm for another 3 or 4 minutes in those games, the results could have been different. They could very easily be 3-0. So they're up there, but we're still seeing the same problems all the way through.
They just haven't converted. Pressure on the coach already. I hear that there's already a few blokes circling behind him just with the knives ready to go.
And I think he knows it too.
Yeah, he does.
Maybe his brother, I hear he's back in town kicking goals.
Is he? Well, there we go. Leroy, could it be a big takeover? Could it be coming along? Talking point number 3 for this week, changing tack for a minute and talking netball. The Sunbury Kangaroos Football Netball Club back in A grade this year after the absence last year, not getting the A grade side up. And after getting a touch up in the first couple of rounds, it was great to see them on the weekend come up against Woodend Heskett and not only win, but win very, very well in A grade. Congratulations to the Kangaroos. Great win. Great to see for the league.
How important is it going to be for their development now to be able to have the A grade side firing now? To get that first win under the belt, that can transfer to maybe 3 or 4 later down the track. But for them to get an A grade side on the paddock is fantastic, and hats off to everyone behind the scenes, because it's not a nice opportunity. Well, it's not a nice circumstances when you don't see a team with an A grade side on the paddock. Obviously, we're seeing Broadford with that at the moment.
We have,
and hopefully next year we see with the calibre of Broadford with they have the same sort of success too. And netball is an essential component of these clubs, obviously.
Oh, it is indeed, and obviously we want the A grade competitions to be as strong as we can, because that's where all of the publicity is, and that's what kids should be wanting to play as they grow up. They should be wanting to play the highest level of netball as they can. They should be wanting to play A grade netball, interleague netball, VNL netball going forward through those stages, and going through that A grade is as good as any, because there's a lot of VNL players in this competition, and that's the best way that they're going to learn how to play netball, I feel.
And I think the addition of the junior netball competition on Sundays as well is only going to benefit the competition 3 or 4 years down the track, and to have a couple of extra grades on top of that on Sundays, I think is outstanding. And for 1 and a bit seasons, there's already a lot of upsides, and hopefully we'll see more clubs invest more junior netballs into their respective junior clubs. Yeah,
there is indeed. It's great seeing the netballs up and going, and well done to the Sunbury Kangaroos on their first win last week. Let's take a look at this week's games in the senior footy competition. Yeend in a pretty big game up at Macedon this weekend. Macedon taking on Lansfield, the 2 gentlemen that we mentioned before as our main goal kickers at either end of the ground to the other, but this should be a pretty good game at Tony Clark Reserve, our interleague venue.
Yeah, definitely, and plus it'll be a great chance to showcase here. I think it's the last time before football takes place on that ground before the big day on May 23, which is going to be a ripper. But I think this is going to be a very telling contest. And when we saw Lansfield last week, they did have a very big problem matching up Lockie Calder for the Rockbank side. And he was strong, he's solid, he was very hard to get around, and he kicked 6 goals for the Rams, which is a big upside to them. But Lansfield, I think they'll be the first to admit they probably couldn't find the ideal matchup, because they do play a little bit short in the back line, where they sort of require that bit of extra run. So if we're going to see a bit of a
the Wombats a large unit too down in that forward line for Macedon, so that is worrying for you to describe Lansfield, that they haven't got that key tool, because if the Wombat gets a hold of him, he could ragdoll a few this weekend.
Exactly, and I would think if there's one player that probably could match up on him, that's probably Scotty Swindells, and he's better up the other end.
Needed to pay Paul, you're right, he's better up the other end or rotating on the ball.
Yeah, but I remember Scotty did I think he had the job on Barry Hall a few years ago, so he can get the job done, but then that's where you're looking at the contest down the other end, because I'm sort of looking at this matchup: Scotty Swindells from Lansfield, Ed Morrissey from Macedon, 2 young guns who are very much alike, height, ability-wise. That's going to be the matchup I'm going to be looking forward to all
Which
day.
way are you going with this one, please?
Oh, look, Macedon will they'll romp it in, but I think Lansfield, they showed a few periods of undiscipline last week, and clubs do show that. But if they can put that element aside and keep their head focused on the ball and really play with good confidence, they should play it really well. I think the disappointing player that I would say that came out from last week is Benny Anderson. Didn't have his best game. We saw him in round 1. He absolutely teared it up.
Yep.
And he's a match winner in the middle. So number 6 there for Lansfield. If Lansfield's going to win, he's going to be the one getting 13, 14 centre clearances. It's going to be the way it's going to be.
Macedon for mine as well, but I reckon Lansfield are going to take it right up to them, as you said, Yeende. Riddle taking on Wallen at the Riddles Creek Recreation Reserve, and it's a different Riddle that we've seen the last couple of weeks to the one that got ragdolled in round 1 as well. A lot of absences that day through weddings. Wallen have been up and about. They went up against Macedon last week and didn't quite measure up to the task, but they'll be confident they can go in, and it could probably cause an upset here.
Definitely, I think so. One of the things we spoke about in the podcast last week was...
good podcast too, get around that.
It was worth every minute. Sam Rex-Heppy.
Yes.
He was going to be a key for the Pies last week, and he didn't kick any goals.
Didn't fire a shot.
So he's not going to have 2 bad weeks in a row. But saying that, I think with Jason Allen back in the team there for the Bombers, he might get the job sort of floating down back. Even Reece Lowry... Oh, no, actually, Reece Lowry's overseas, I know that.
Yes.
Been checking my social media. So I think Sam Rex-Heppy's probably going to have a tough job, but look, you never know. Wallen probably put in a very disappointing performance last week, and they wouldn't want to go back-to-back in that sense, would you think?
Your man Hayden Ross, how's he been going? The one that dressed up as Yeende for Mad Monday last year?
Mate, so I know. I've known H since he was yay big, and he got best on last week as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing him the following week against Lansfield, and who knows, a bottle of wine could be heading his way again. But look, I think it's good signs over at the Bombers, and they'll probably want to forget that first game against Diggers Rest, and you need to have a bad one early to sort of push forward, and they have, and hats off to them.
It's a riddle for you this week.
Definitely, mate.
A riddle for me as well, and Yeende already telegraphing the Hanging Rock Player of the Week on 100.7 for next weekend as well. Sunbury Kangaroos are taking on Melton Centrals at Boardman Reserve this week, and Sunbury Kangaroos have lived up to all of the hype so far this year. They are absolutely flying, and Central's good game plan they've got under Glenn Hopkins this year, very similar to Rockbank in many ways, in that they're pushing clubs but not quite getting over the line in many ways. They did the same against Macedon a couple of weeks ago, but they're another one that can really take a step this year. Great to see Nathan Richardson this week added to the Interleague squad. 4 people, of course, added to the Interleague squad. This is news to you because you haven't spoken about this yet. So Richo's in. We've got Mark Young from Romsey. We've also got the 2 boys from Broadford, Justin Webb and Adam Svark as well. So great to see them added to the squad. And Sunbury Kangaroos, though, flying at the moment. Simon Clark coming back into the side this week could be an absolute jet for them.
Well, as you did say, the Centrals, they've been pushing sides this week. If you take away their first quarters, and they've pretty much won every game that they've played, and let's be honest, so that they started, Riddle kicked 7 straight on in the first term to nothing, and the margin ended up being 43 points. So 1 point game. So it's, and as you said, mentioned the same thing against Macedon as well, but look, with those additions, Simon Clark. I mean, the fact they're able to kick 22 goals or something on the weekend, the Sunbury Kangaroos, through Hattie, through Kaufman, and
Mitchie Streif.
They kicked 17 goals between them, 17 out of 22, which isn't bad, and that's without their key forward. So against an opposition which has still got a little bit of work to do, but you've still got to kick those goals anyway, and they've shown that avenue through to goals to perfection.
Match up this week, Adam Fenton at one end, Kane Bullen standing next to him. That could be very, very interesting.
Well, I think the umpires might have to keep a quiet eye on that one too.
Yes, Bully, very, very fair player, of course, and will get the job done, but it's Kangaroos in this one for mine.
To Kangaroos for me too. I hope Mr. Hickman steps up, Rexy at the other end, and maybe kicks another 3 or 4. But if he's got the job, Dan Gregory's got him, then I think he's going to have a hard day at the office. But
hard day for anybody when they play Dan Gregory. Very, very good player. Rupertswood taking on Woodend Heskett this week, and Rupertswood, bit of a stop and starter throughout the season so far, but did the job against Romsey. They did what no one else has been able to do for quite some time, and they're starting to get the ship righted once again. Coming up against the Woodend Heskett side that again have been competitive, but like Rockbank haven't found that victory just yet. Rupo going as favourites in this one. Definitely
odds-on favourites quite comfortably, but I don't think this is going to be a game that's going to be quite easy for them. I know Woodend Heskett, they've lost the last 2 games by 110 points in both affairs, and I think they've got a lot of chance to improve here. Rupertswood, they've had 2 big losses. They started really well against Diggers last week and then completely faded. And the game against Romsey, well, that was just an incredible game of football, and they are basically in the rain. So I don't think this is going to be easy for them. I think they'll get the job done. that I think it's a good chance for them to look back and try and maybe look forward and get a game plan going that they can really set themselves up against the big sides.
Interesting to see Ross Sly come up against a former teammate in Brett Chambers this week as well, in a matchup that could be quite pivotal.
Yeah, exactly, and I hope Roscoe really steps up this week. He did play quite well against the Kangaroos, and leading by example as a coach. We saw a few glimpses of his brilliant performance against the Cats in round one, where he kicked a couple of goals and used the footy quite well. So if he gets the ball, he can become quite dangerous. But the Hawks need a few more players than that to get the job done. Kilmore
taking on Broadford at the JJ Clancy Reserve this week. This game on OKR FM 98.3. Do a fantastic job, the guys. So make sure you tune in here. Broadford, a few big names coming into their team in recent weeks. Dennis Beiser, of course, coming on board as well, which is a huge in for Broadford, and they're going okay at the moment. I reckon they'll definitely start favourites here, and they'll probably pencil this one in quite early.
Dennis still at the Bulldogs?
Don't know.
Yeah, I did some work with him when Jack Redpath was on the scene a few years ago. But look, hats off to Broadford. Congratulations on them on a magnificent day last week. I obviously didn't get a chance to get down there, but from all reports, they got a big crowd. While they didn't get the result, I think they can take a lot of confidence out of it. And
I think you're right.
Mitchy Farmer kicked 7 goals and basically pulled them from everywhere. And as he does. And if he didn't do that, then maybe the result could have been a little bit different. But they showed a lot of potential. And Corey Vianney, absolutely outstanding. And he's definitely one of the most underrated midfielders, I think, in the competition. Because when he's firing, Broadford tend to do the same thing too.
Broadford by a few, 7 or 8, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. And I know, having a chat to both Kilmore coaches over the last couple of weeks, I think they know they've got a lot of improvement to go to, and just need to improve their fitness and be competitive, and that's all
which they're doing. They're being reasonably competitive in most of their games, Kilmore, and they've got some pretty handy players. Matty Trainer's a gun, come over from Trentham for this year, so he can definitely go. So they've got a few blokes in there that can play the game. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, definitely, and they've got some the two coaches they've got there, Dave and Trav. I think that they're an outstanding asset for the club, and it's a bit of a short-term pain for long-term gain, but that's the reality. And from what I hear, the Kilmore supporters respect and understand that, and they're going to still get right behind them, as they will get down there in their masses at the JJ.
Last game for the weekend, and the one that you'll be at, Yeende, one of the biggest games this year without a shadow of a doubt. The grand final rematch at the grand final venue. Not often we see that happening. Romsey taking on Diggers Rest at Romsey Park this weekend. 100.7 Highlands FM is where it will be at, so keep the dial locked there all day. This will be a ripper.
I think so, mate, and I think most of the excitement will be off the field as Romsey go on and celebrate Pink Day, which they do to perfection.
They do indeed.
Pinketeers have been doing a fantastic job behind the scenes, so plenty of great raffles and everything going on. When it comes to Pink Day, there's no clubs that do it better than Romsey.
Agreed. Article in the record this week on the Pinketeers as well, so make sure you grab your copy of the record on the way in. Some fantastic work by Romsey and the Pinketeers and what they're raising money for, so get behind them.
And it's certainly going to be fantastic to see the guys and girls out there in the pink strip as well, which is going to be great, which is a commentator's curse because they generally happen to wear different numbers.
Of course.
Got to know the face though. But I think this is going to be a really important game, and Romsey, they'll come out battered and bruised after last week. We know Matty Burkett went down with a broken collarbone injury, but that was the win that the club really needed to push themselves forward. Obviously, Broadford, they were loaded with a couple of extra stars just to add to the momentum. And good teams like Romsey, they always come through. And Diggers Rest, they're going to be flying high after that brilliant win. I think they kicked, 14 of the last 17 goals or something of the game last week against Rupertswood. And that momentum, we spoke about it earlier, 3 big options. Doesn't get much better than that, and I don't know how Romsey can go in terms of shutting down those stars as well.
Nothing ever erases the pain of a grand final defeat, but a win this weekend for Diggers Rest will go a little bit of a way towards maybe not erasing that pain, but giving them the belief that they can go that one step further in 2015.
Definitely, and they've got the quality list in there as well. They've got the good experience, and Diggers Rest still showing that they are, still forming the grand final, being grand finalists last year. Romsey, obviously, they've lost a few, but I mean, it's a new slate now, so 2015 they'll be ready to go, and they'll be really determined to erase that round 2 defeat at the hands of Ruperts.
Who are you tipping, please?
I'll say Romsey by a sniff.
I'm going Diggers Rest for this one. I really like their early season form. I think they're going to set themselves for this game. They've got some blokes in there. Jamie Lobb at 85 years old playing some very good footy down there as well. So just feel that Diggers Rest will get over the line in this one. Is Lobby playing?
Oh, I'm not too sure, mate.
I'm not sure. Well, he's about 87 years old, so if he is, he's done a fantastic job to get. I know he's trying to sell houses a lot as well, so whether that's interfering with his footy or not, I'm not sure.
Well, he wouldn't want to miss this game if the opportunity was there to play.
Like, you're 100% right, but regardless, I still think Diggers a lot of options up forward, a lot of goal kicking options, and I just feel they're in that slightly better form at the moment.
And I have a feeling, just picking up the mighty record, that this might be the last of the blockbusters that we're going to have for a while. We've started the opening month of the RDFNL with big games every single week, but the following week after this one, with the heavyweights aren't going to be facing each other too much.
Always going to be blockbusters in the RDFL, especially with new clubs pushing their way up to become the heavyweights this year. Obviously, we see Macedon reinvigorating themselves and Broadford as well. And what we sometimes see at blockbusters at the start of the year don't necessarily eventuate. What we see, it's not necessarily as blockbusters, sometimes become them. And AFL is a great example.
Yep.
In 2 weeks' time, there's a game between Fremantle and the Western Bulldogs at Etihad Stadium that you would have looked at the start of the year and thought, this is going to be a nothing game.
Yep.
Now you're looking at one of the most exciting games of the year.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I believe the game between Lansfield and Rockbank on the weekend was one of the better games that has happened over the last 4 weeks here in the competition. So that makes perfect sense. And sometimes it could be the blockbusters between the smaller sides looking to build their way up, especially when they're building up talent. Because on May 23, of course, what is happening out at Tony Clark Reserve, mate?
Yeah, Interleague Day on May 23rd. All of our squads in action at the moment, going through their paces. The under-19s, under-19s this year, because Nepean League play under-19, so we've upped the age group for a year, so not a bad thing. They're in action next Wednesday night. They get a practice run against the Ballarat Footy League down at Ballarat's Eastern Oval, so we'll be down there and we'll have a look at that one for you as well. And then, of course, on the 23rd, everything happening against the Nepean Footy League. We've had some chats with the Nepean Footy League. We've had a look at their list, and there's quite a few familiar names in there. I know from my point of view anyway, from my days in the Eastern Footy League, there's a lot of boys that used to run around for Vermont there. Chris Barden, Nathan Henley, Dean Millhouse, Ryan Mullett, Simon Taylor that used to play at Hawthorn, Lee Morse that used to play at Port Melbourne as well. So quite a few familiar names within that league as well. So we'll get to know a few of those coming forward. We'll get to see them all in action on May 23rd. Yendi, that's all we've got for this week, mate. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, mate.
It becomes your show from next week onwards, mate. So I've set the bar. Now you've just got to keep raising it.
Jeez, I need a bigger ladder, mate.
No, I don't know about that, mate. Won't take you much to Fosby Frop over the top of that. Thanks for joining us on the Melton Toyota RDFL Footy Show this week. Brought to you by Melton Toyota, of course, the #1 dealership for new and used cars in the RDFL catchment area. Go down and talk to Grant and Nabby and the team and get yourself a new deal, especially throughout May. $250 from every sale going back to your club. So get down there, have a chat to them and make a sale and get some money in your club's coffers. See you next week.